Hey, Remprex. Good evening. Happy Tuesday night to you. It is a very comfy, warm Tuesday evening where I am. Very sunny, very lovely. So today we're going to do, as we always do every Tuesday night, we're doing yoga. We're more of a stretching style yoga, which is the perfect thing to do at this time of day. When it's after dinner time, ideally you don't want to be doing anything too rigorous and intense. If you do, you want to make sure there's like plenty of time for like winding down, softening, relaxing, so you can actually go to sleep from a place that's not stressed and overwhelmed, all jacked up. So if you can start to make this part of your routine, I think that you would receive some really great physical benefits as well as emotional, kind of mental health benefit. And then your energy would obviously receive a huge benefit. You'd probably have a much deeper sleep and feel a lot more rested and feel, therefore, just all around a lot better. So if you can make this a part of your routine to do this, I don't know, an hour, 2 hours before bed, or just really close up into the point where you go to bed to do some really nice, slow stretching. After class, it's best if you don't wind it back up and go on a Netflix binge. That would kind of not defeat the purpose or counter it, but you want to still continue in that like slow kind of direction. What we're going to do today is we're going to go pretty slow. We're going to do some nice kind of hip stretching. So to get into some postures around hip stretching, we need to spend a bit of time. One of the like big postures for stretching your hips is called pigeon pose. A lot of people freak out and run away from it. Um, it doesn't necessarily need to be that way. It's just that people, I don't think, know how to get into the posture. But we need to be pretty warm and pretty, like, not necessarily really stretchy or flexible, but just really like open and ready to do that stretch. So we're going to try to actually get there today, where we're going to just move and progress along, mostly like floor stretching, so that we can hit a kind of climactic stretching moment, which is pigeon pose. And then we'll go down into just a really simple kind of held stretch as a cool down. So that's where we're going today. People hold a lot of tension in their hips, a lot of just stuff in their hips. Women will generally say they either have tight hips or tight neck and shoulders. Men will often also say they have like tight hips or low back. So it's just a great place for both of us to all of us to just work into and make sure that that area is supple and good to go. And like I said, it will really help with your sleep, make more sleep more comfortable. If you're like a side sleeper or a back sleeper, or even a tummy sleeper, having your hips just a bit more open feels really good. So if you can, I don't have any water. I never bring water on Tuesdays, but please have water whenever you want. Take that cue from yourself whenever you need it and sip as you feel fit. Don't do any postures that feel painful, anything beyond like comfortable stretching or just a little bit of effort, the kind of discomfort that comes with effort. Avoid anything that is beyond that, no strain or pain or anything like that. We're just moving things slowly, progressively, using our breath. Nothing should be painful. What else can I say? If you have questions about anything that we do, if you're like, Kendra, I have no idea what pigeon pose is, I don't know what you're talking about. But then after our class and you see pigeon pose, then you may be like, I can't do that at all. Help me out. Like, how do I modify this? Or can we like find a way to regress it slightly so that we can move forward more quickly in the long run? That's totally fine. Send me an email or a pointergram message. Pointergram messages are great because everyone sees them and everyone benefits from your question. So it doesn't matter where you do it, wherever you're most comfortable. Okay, I think we can start. Yeah, we're gonna go sort of against what I usually say. We're still gonna do a full body stretch. We'll get down there, but it's gonna be not as warming and invigorating because we're really gonna do some like slow holds. Usually I say as a warm up, we're gonna use our whole body and make big shapes. We're gonna do that, but kind of slow, kind of like going down deep into our hips progressively over the next 20 or so minutes. Okay, let's do all of that stuff I just said. So you're going to begin standing. I think that's all set up well. Just double check. Yeah, we're gonna come down quick. So that blazing white light will be gone soon. So you're gonna stand just with enough space in front of you because we're just gonna do a forward fold really slowly. Ideally, you wanna just start with your feet underneath your hips. If you're really tight and you're gonna go down to a forward fold and it feels really intense to do first thing, just put a little bit more space between your legs. It takes a lot of stress or any kind of, overexerting away right off the hop. So let's just stand with our feet underneath our hips. Come into the space for a second, meaning relax your mind. Just pay attention to the fact that you're standing, about to do a yoga practice, just bringing yourself into the present moment, feeling your feet, helping you feel any kind of like down, heavy groundedness is helpful. So feeling the heaviness of your body, feeling your feet in connection with the ground or your mat. And then from there, you're going to just put a little bend into your knees, micro bend, as they say. And you're just going to slowly just tip yourself over. So I always like to envision like a board from my like pelvic floor to the top of my head. And I'm going to just stick my bum back, send my pubic bone back. And then my top of my head, like the crown of my head just goes straight forward. So it's like working as if it's like one piece. I'm going to go to as far as I can with hands on the ground, knees bent, relaxed. Okay, so whatever combination of knee bending you need to do to get there, do that. And then breathe here for a few breaths. Now, to get this a little bit more dynamic and probably a little bit more comfortable, you're going to bend one knee, straighten the other, bend the other knee, straighten the opposite knee. So you're kind of pumping or pedaling the knees, breathing really deeply, and making sure that your hands are really in good contact, not just drifting around in space. Do maybe one more pedal, one on each side. Come back to that kind of frozen, relaxed forward fold. If your feet are like farther spread apart, like I showed you at the beginning, just kind of wiggle heel toe your feet in so that your feet are right underneath your hips again. Crown of the head straight down to the ground, hands on the ground, feet firmly rooted in the ground. You feel your heels in the ground. Good, and from here, we're gonna drive up into a standing position. So when you're inverted for a long period of time, it can be a little overwhelming on your circulatory system. So just come up slowly. Put your weight in your heels, both feet, both heels equally. Slowly roll up on bent knees. Nice and easy, take your time. Let your head be the last thing that kind of stacks on top of your body. And just hang out there for a moment, just checking in on any sensation of like nausea or dizzy, lightheaded. Wait until that's totally gone. Breathe deeply into your belly. Make your low abdomen push kind of forward. Relax back inward. Now the next big kind of slowish movement that we're going to do is we're going to do a deep squat, and then we'll come back to our position. So deep squat, the farther away your feet are, kind of the better. There's obviously going to be a point where it's too much, but you don't really want to have, unless you have incredible flexibility in your feet, in your hips, and in your back, which most people don't have all three of those, having your feet underneath your hips is really hard. So space your feet out, take your toes, instead of being like train tracks in front of you to going to 12 o'clock, have them at more like 10 and 2. Have them a bit more open and relaxed. Now what you're going to do is just really slowly start bending both knees equally and head down towards the ground into a squat that we're going to just move in and out of by just leaning into one leg more than the other. So nothing really complicated, just leaning in one side. Maybe your heel comes up depending on how flexible your ankles are. My ankles are not flexible, so they just come up a little bit more than the average. And my hands, if you want to get more into the yoga styles, you can go palm to palm, really in what they call like a prayer position or Anjali Mudra. And you're going to push your elbows into your triceps. You're going to push your triceps into your knees, tricep elbow area into your knees. So your knees are getting kind of spread open. by your forearms in this like nice straight line, meaning your hands are not like this. They're pushed, you're making like one forearm bone. That makes sense. You're just going to kind of dynamically move from side to side, exactly like we were doing in forward fold land. But now we're in a kind of deep yogi squat. And then we're going to pause here. So pause at the bottom. Now, there's a lot of things that can happen here. Feel like you're going to fall backwards, feel like you're going to fall forwards, feeling like your knees don't move in the way that they feel like they should be, like your hips are really heavy, and it feels overwhelming on like the stretch. As best you can, try to lean back into your heels without falling over, and just instead of caving in, let me show you from this side. Instead of like caving in and like getting stuck in your body, push your knees, push your elbows into your knees. Push your elbows into your knees and like really make your spine long and tall. I feel like the top of your head is reaching up towards the ceiling and your pelvis, your tailbone is headed down towards the ground. That just helps you feel more stable and comfortable. And then from here, you can come out of your yogi-like pose and you're gonna head to just sit on your bum. So however you're facing, you can just put your hands behind you, sit on your bum, and then orient yourself so that you're sitting on your mat with your legs out and you have lots of space. So you're sitting at the back of your mat. Okay. So the first thing let's do is let's just roll our ankles in circles. Don't worry too much about sitting up straight or knees bent or whatever. Just focus on rolling your ankles and doing it equally in both directions. So maybe go 5 or so times in one direction, 5 or so in the other. Let's get all that open. And then from here, what we're going to do is we're just going to get into the hips a little bit more. You're going to pull your right knee up towards your chest. Squeeze it as hard as you can up towards your chest. And then just slowly let it come back down. So you're just adding some nice good old compression in the front of your hips. Do it one more, the same thing on the other side, the left leg. Pull it in as hard as you can. Squeeze it in there. Squeeze it. And then let it go, relax down. Good, now do the same thing on the right. So again, squeezing it in. Now this time I want you to like dig your heel in as hard as you can as you lower and really focus on straightening that knee. Okay, so it's like you're drawing a big thick paint line with your heel, one at a time. Let's do the other side. Pull the left leg in as hard as you can. Draw straight, kind of rigid, thick, heavy line with your heel. And then as you get there, straighten, straighten, straighten. So now you have 2 very straight legs. Now let's just add the seated posture here. So we're getting like more rigid with our legs, more straight with our legs, feeling that. Let's do it one more time. So pull the right leg in, squeeze, squeeze, squeeze. Paint a big thick stripe down on your mat with your heel as it drags. Straighten that right knee and sit up tall, meaning sit up on your sit bones if you can. Be as tall as you can. So now you're creating like an L shape with your body, like really visualizing the L shape. Try not to be too far away from you, and try not to be like rounded. Just do your best version, okay? Don't worry or compare what your body looks like compared to mine. That's kind of useless. Let's do that one more time on the other side. So the left side, pull your left leg into your body as close as you can. Pull, 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 pull. Draw that big, thick, black line with your heel. As you do that, straighten that left knee and sit up tall. Okay, so now we're in like the perfect position to do a seated forward fold. So let's do that. Flexed feet, toes pointed up to the sky. Super straight legs, flexed knees. Sit up tall as high as you can on your bum. If you feel like you're still not there, it's like a little yoga trick to like move the fleshy parts of your hip and your buttocks, like your glute muscles, and sit up and like find your sit bones. So you kind of like flatten or lengthen out your pelvic floor. It helps to kind of just move that out of the way if needed. Hands on the thighs. Slowly roll slowly kind of just let your hands, I guess, drag across your body and find something to grab onto. Maybe that's your shins. Maybe that's your feet. Wherever you are, it doesn't matter. Let's just get there. Feel that opening in the back of the legs somewhere between your heels and, I mean, even to the top of your head, really, but somewhere between your heels, calves, back of the knee, hamstrings, bum, low back, mid back, upper back, neck area. Breathe into that. So we're on the ground here. It's a little bit easier to focus on breathing. When we have a lot of complex stuff, even if it's not really that complicated, it can be hard to focus on the breathing. Focus on being present. We're more worried about what are we doing next. So now we're in a static kind of position or posture. So let's just take a moment to feel the breath. Use every exhale to just come a little bit closer to the ground. It doesn't actually mean that you need to move a millimeter at all, but just still have that feeling that every exhale brings a sense of relaxation, of opening, of lengthening, just rest, peace, calm, whatever feeling happens. And it allows you to be more relaxed in the position, which eventually will bring you deeper. All right, one more breath here. Good. Slowly roll yourself up. Take your time. No need to rush. As soon as you get back up into that L shape that we created, just hang out there for a moment. Make sure that everything feels good. You're back into alignment. And then we're going to do a seated windshield wipers. Sorry, I used to live in the UK and they don't call it a windshield. So I always get confused with the North American and the UK version of that. So what you're going to do, you don't need to necessarily move, but I'm just going to move to show you. You're going to have your hands behind you that you're leaning into, fingernails pointed away, and your feet are going to be pretty open. So if you're just seated right now where you were with your yoga mat, your feet are almost they're like at the edges of your yoga mat, the long edges of your yoga mat. You're going to sit up tall, like squeeze your shoulder blades together. I'll change positions in a second just so you can see. And you're going to keep your sternum, like keep your chest, keep your nose facing forward, and you're going to let your knees drop to one side. Let them relax, like let them just kind of soften. Don't worry about where they are, where they aren't. One's going into an external rotation, one's going into an internal, so they'll just feel different. Pick them back up. Make sure you still have space between your feet, quite a large distance, and go the other way. And let yourself just feel that, how that feels different. Now, what I don't want you to do is to allow your like chest to come with you. So really squeeze your shoulder blades together. Chest is like up and lifted, sternum still facing forward, okay? So keep doing that from side to side. I'm just gonna switch my direction so you can just see. Really tall and straight up in my spine. My hands are supporting me. Let the hips do the rotating, not the spine. And how you make that happen is keep your sternum facing forward. It's really good for all those muscles between your shoulder blades too. Okay, one more time in each direction. All right, then we can come out of that. And what we're gonna do is we'll just quickly move to get some stretching to the front of our hip. Kind of the best way to do that is doing the lunges that we're familiar with, just for time and efficiency's sake, since I know you guys are somewhat familiar with this already. Come up into a tall kneeling position. Come up into a tall kneeling position where it feels like you're not like pitching forward. So meaning like really stand, try to get like your hip socket, which is right here, right in line with your knee. Lots of us will just sit back slightly and we don't notice it. But actually, like if you look at the kind of line here in my hip, it's going to be really hard to get a stretch right like already, because I'm already in a very unstretchable state. I'm like doing a lesser version, more subtle version of this. So you want to sit up tall or like kneel up tall so that you already head into a really good opening position. This is going to give you a stretch. This is not going to give you a stretch. Okay. This is not so nice on your low back. This is pretty awesome on your low back. Okay. So just keep that in mind when we're doing this. So you just saw that left hip. Let's stretch it out. Let's do our right foot forward. Let's do a little simple tuck under first, then we'll come into a full lunge. And then the rest we'll do kind of on the ground here. So how do we get here? Get your weight off your back knee. Divvy your weight up equally between both feet, both knees, both legs. Tuck your butt under. Get that stretch. If you're sitting here like an Instagram kind of butt out thing, I don't know what happened with the world for that to be a good stretch. It's impossible to stretch like that. Biomechanics says you cannot. So get this open, tuck your bum under, and start to lean into your front foot. Just lean your weight a little bit. You don't need to go very far. And I'm not necessarily like leaning straight forward, like in a forward direction. I'm kind of going on like an oblique curve, like off towards my right foot, my front foot. That gives me a lot of front kind of hip. Maybe you get it in your quad, that's fine. But it also gives you the opportunity to get like a nice groin stretch, which also feels really great. Now to get this into a bigger kind of shape, a more like traditional thing you see in like studio yoga, you're gonna walk your front foot forward. You're gonna find your own sweet spot. And if you've been coming to class enough, maybe you're starting to feel your sweet spot where you have the ability to get your weight forward, but your heel stays down. Meaning if you don't give yourself enough space and you go forward, your heel is like up and you'll never be comfortable in the stretch. The mechanics just aren't right. So find your sweet spot, heel stamp down, let yourself come down. Try not to pitch yourself and lay yourself on your thigh. Be straight and tall. Get real good into that groin and hip, all that sitting. Inhale and reach your arms up. Take 3 breaths here. And really like be present, meaning like visualize that your breath is actually opening all that up. Visualize that like the tissue is getting more circulation, more resources are going into it. All the junk and gunk and stagnation is leaving it because of that. Really like keep your mind anchored in the present moment. And then on an exhale, you're going to swing your hands just down and pull yourself back to a tall kneeling position, back where we started, and we can do our second side. Again, watch where you are. I know it's like, Kendra, it's not a big deal. It's like it's a little bit off, but it ends up being a big deal because your starting position, if you set yourself up right, it's super easy to feel stretches. If you set yourself up a little funky, you got to kind of work for it and it doesn't always feel so comfortable. So stretching the right hip, the back leg, my left leg is forward, my foot is underneath, or my knee is underneath my foot. I'm going to tuck my bum under the best that I can, and I'm going to lean my weight equally into both legs and really get into this front leg. Imagine that you're hiking up a really steep hill. I like summited a very big mountain in Washington State yesterday, so I'm really feeling my leg, feeling the quads today. But that real feeling like you're digging in, like you want to almost like get up from a lunge position here, if you could. All right, to come into our full lunge, studio yoga lunge time. Wiggle your foot forward as much as you need. Stamp your front heel down, find that sweet spot in yourself and just keep repeating. So it's second nature. Be really tall in your body. Drop your pelvic floor down as best you can. Inhale your arms up. Three breaths here. And again, go through the same process. Be like as present and aware for this hip stretch, this right hip, that you were for the left one, your first one. Feel again like opening tissue, getting some space, getting some movement, moving some old gunky stuff around, getting some hydration, some nourishment, some resources in and out of the area is so good. Find an exhale, hands are gonna come down, and you're gonna pull yourself into tall kneeling just momentarily, and we're gonna head down towards the ground to stretch our bums out, and then we'll finish in some pigeon action. You guys let me know if you like pigeon. It's good. It's good stuff. Just a little iffy on first few goes. Okay. This is the modification for pigeon. Like if you feel like, oh my gosh, I can't do pigeon at all, you're gonna come back to this posture. It's just, we've done it before. It's called figure 4 stretch. It really stretches out your hips, particularly like your deep rotators, the one that's like closest to our bones. They get real tense on the inside, like in the core of our kind of anatomy. We want to loosen those up. So my feet are on the ground. My feet, my knees, and my sit bones are in a line, like tracks. You're gonna take your right leg into a figure 4 like positions, meaning your right shin is gonna cross over your left thigh, right shin, left thigh. Then push that right knee open. You can either do it with your hand if your arm is long enough, which mine is, but I got freaky long arms. So if your arm is not long enough and it just doesn't feel comfortable to do that, just open it up with the muscles of your leg. Get a nice open feeling in the front of that hip. And then for the actual stretch, which is not going to be in the front of the right hip, but the back of the right hip into your bum, those deep bum muscles, you're going to reach for your left leg. Reach for either the hamstring, like behind the thigh, or the shin, whatever feels best for you. And you're going to pull all that nice and easy, both legs in towards your chest. Feel the goodness of, I feel wicked amounts of just pulling in my bum, pulling in all that tissue that's real tight and fibrous. Use your breath here. So let's do like 5 or so breaths. And inhales are not the best time to be pulling if you are pulling at all. I don't really like the whole pulling thing in general. But if you were to get your legs closer to your body, you definitely want to be doing that on an exhale. It's very like pressure building if you do it on an inhale. We don't want that. We want to be pulling our body into a deeper stretch when there's less pressure. So it gives some opportunity to get that tension into the area, get a little bit more stretch. All right, we'll take one more breath here. And then just super simple, easy. Back to where we started to do the second side. So like I said, this is a precursor to pigeon. Left shin on top of right thigh. Left shin onto your right thigh. Push that left knee open with the hand or not, whatever floats your boat. And then you can grab into the true like full position, which is grab for your right hamstring or the right back of your thigh or your right shin. All that's the same thing. Just get all of your lower half in towards your chest. Nice smooth 5 breaths here. All right, finish it off wherever you are. One more moment. Down on the exhale. And you can let all that go. All right, so to come into pigeon, we actually need to start kind of more seated. So just slowly, don't need to yank yourself up, but slowly come up however you'd like. And let's try to find pigeon. Um, so let's do it with the right leg forward. Okay, so how we're gonna do that is you're gonna make a 90-degree angle with your right knee. So I'm like leaning off to the side. I'm like leaning on my right hip, leaning on my right hand, and I got my knee in line with my hip here. And then I have a nice 90-degree angle, shin out to the side. You can see the sole of my foot is headed straight out to the long edge of my mat. Ideally, the sweet thing that we want to get a good pigeon is to keep this 90 degree at the knee. This is obviously the very hard part. It's more likely that your foot will end up going this way, but we kind of want to, as best we can, at least start off in the correct position. Then you want to use your hands and start to kind of like sit instead of like leaning far over onto the right side. Start to sit more upright. So start to sit more on the center of this thigh. From there, this other leg, let me just move forward slightly, get my legs all sorted. From there, this back leg, which is now it's my left leg at this moment, I'm gonna just shoot it behind me. And maybe you can take your knee off and maybe it stays, or maybe it's kind of like this. Wherever you are getting the stretch, like I said, it really doesn't matter. This is like totally unique to each person, and it really doesn't matter what my body is doing compared to yours. But you would ideally want to be getting up into a full position with your leg, your knee straight, and yourself totally straight up like this, which obviously, as you can see, I don't do a lot of pigeons in my life. But you want to have like your hands just underneath each shoulder, chest, turn towards your shin, and really getting a stretch. You should be feeling maybe some stretching, probably some stretching in the back hip, but really we're focused on the right hip, the front hip. And we're trying to stop ourselves from falling over into our right side and trying to like level ourselves off. So our pubic bone, belly button, sternum, nose, it's like in one straight alignment towards the ground. Okay. Now, to make that a little bit more crazy and wild, maybe a little deeper, you can start to take your hands down in front of you, like onto your elbows. That may increase the stretch in your bum, especially if you try to like flatten your spine out, like try to get your belly button just down instead of it kind of being hugged up into like a flex kind of curve position. Push your belly button down to the ground. That'll get some nice kind of stretching probably into your, again, the front hip is what we're interested in. Wherever you are, if you're like, Kendra, this totally sucks, I can't do any of this, go back to where we were, which is the figure four. And the better you get at figure four, the easier this will be to come into. But in general, I think from the way that we got into it, everyone will be able to find like their comfy version of it. And if you like this position, you can let me know. We can do more of it. It's just, again, like I said, we need to kind of work our way into it. We spent the whole class culminating into this moment. All right, one more full breath here. Nice, big, smooth inhale. Followed by long, deep exhale. Come back onto your hands. Hands are best underneath your shoulders. And this is super easy to get out of. Just lean yourself into your right hip, pull or just swing your left leg forward in front of you, and then we'll do the other side. Super simple. Okay, so left leg down in front of me. So my setup is my knee is in line with my hip, meaning my knee is not like way over here and it's not way out to the side. I'm like tracing a nice straight line from my hip to my knee. And then like you saw on the first side, I'm making a 90-degree angle with my knee, meaning my shin bone and my thigh bone are perpendicular to each other. Yeah. Sole of the foot is now going to the other long edge direction of the mat. Now I'm just chilling out here with leaning on my left hip, my left hand, and I really don't have any weight going on in my right leg. So slowly to get into the posture, like I said, ideally we keep 90 degrees at the front knee, but it's okay if it starts to just bend more. But let's start off good. Now the direction that we're going is we want to start to like level everything off. Instead of being really left, we want to lean into being straight. So hands come underneath your shoulders, straighten out your back leg, which is my right leg, your right leg, as best you can. and try to find a nice good old stretch into your left hip. You again, like you may feel stretching going on in the front of your right hip, that's fine. But find yourself in a position that feels pretty intense on your left hip. My left hip is like a block. I don't know if you guys have caught on to my block left hip, but it is real. So I have to really make sure that I'm not falling and just leaning off to my left here. I gotta like really push to be straight, really push myself to be level. You can lean yourself forward. Get your weight into your forearms if that feels fine. For me, it feels hard to just stay here. I feel like I just want to fall to the left, fall to the left. So I got to really dig my left elbow into the ground, really be tall in my spine, push belly button just down towards the ground. Get a nice opening as best you can. Stay here for about 3 breaths. Some people may find pigeon incredibly easy. I'm very jealous of those people. Some people are really flexible in some directions, and some directions not so much. So wherever you are, it's all good. The more you work at it, the more it changes. That's the most important part. All right, slowly walk your way up. Make sure you're up just for a moment with your hands underneath your shoulders, just for a moment to feel that levelness coming in. And then your way out, lean into your left hand, left hip, swing or grab your right leg, and that's it. I think we'll call it there, actually. That felt like a really good place to kind of end it. If you do have more time, please hang out for 5 more minutes on your own, just feeling into it. You have probably very open hips after today. Today was a really good hip opening class. So take advantage of that. Do a couple more of this, a couple more of that, or just go to bed and read a book. It's also a very positive direction to take after this kind of class. All right. Thank you so much for joining me. It was wonderful. And I'll see you tomorrow, Wednesday at 6:30 Central Time. We will be doing a circuit. Good night.